175 here. We have some problems over here right now. And we might have a hijacked over here, two of them. Joe, listen, on an airplane that's been hijacked, things will go well. I'm looking at I want to absolutely fuck here. I want to do good. Go have some fun. Things that I can to everybody. And I just totally love you. And hopefully you'll accept them. Hi, babe.
What are those people gonna do?
Really?
All the other ones are fucked up.
Oh my god. So both powers are down.
Crystal City, just north of Crystal City. It's the north here town. Yeah, stop all the Parkers. Don't play that. I can't protect my NCA. United 93, that traffic 3 is 1 o'clock, 12 miles eastbound 370. Negative contact, we're looking United 93. United 93, Cleveland, if you're going to start right then. They got that business down. United City, you're out of all
Tuesday, 9:47 a.m.
Hi, baby. Baby, you have to listen to me carefully. I'm on a plane that's been hijacked. I'm on the plane. I'm calling from the plane. I want to tell you I love you. Please tell my children that I love them very much. And I'm so sorry, baby. I hope to be able to see your face again, baby. I love you. Bye.
We're 56865. We have, I believe it is a Boeing 757. Can you see him up there, sir? I concur. It looks like he's rocking his wings. Roger. He's rocking back and forth. We're 56865. I advise you stay away from that aircraft. Go north as fast as you can.
United 93, have you got information on that yet?
Yeah, he's down.
He's down?
Yes.
When did he land?
He did not land.
Oh, he's down?
Yeah, somewhere up northeast of Camp David.
Honestly, I just want to let you know I love you. And I still do. New York. We want to smoke and we just want to do whatever that we love you already. That's what the people are saying for right.
Because you gotta help each other get off the floor. Now,
Everybody please rise as we post the colors.
Inward, face. Honor guard, place. Color. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
If you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. O God of love and compassion and healing, look upon us of many different faiths and traditions as we gather here today. We ask you in your goodness to give eternal light and peace to all who died on September 11th, 2001, and since then. We remember the heroic first responders, firefighters, police officers, emergency service workers, Port Authority and airline personnel, along with the men and women who were victims of this tragedy simply because of their work or service in New York City, in the Pentagon, and in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. We ask you in your compassion to bring healing to those who suffer from injuries and illness. We ask you in your mercy to be present with families and all who lost loved ones in this event. Give them strength to continue with courage and give them hope. God of love, bring your peace to the violence in our world. God of love, bring your peace to the hearts of all men and women. God of love, bring peace to the nations of the earth. God of love, bring peace to those whose hearts and minds are consumed with hatred. God of love, walk with us so we are not overwhelmed by the magnitude of these events or other events that are before us. God of love, we seek your light and guidance as we remember a day we promised we would never forget. God of love, console us, strengthen us in hope, and give us the wisdom and courage to work tirelessly for the world where true peace, love, and understanding reign among nations and in the hearts of every human being. And the congregation said, Amen.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Christian Goodwin, County Administrator, and thank you all so much for taking the time to join us today to pause and reflect and to honor those who were lost on that tragic day on this country, in this country's soil nearly 21 years ago. In his address to the nation on September 11th, 2001, President Bush assured the American people the following words. He said, "Terrorist attacks can shake the foundation of our biggest buildings, but they cannot touch the foundation of America." And he also said that today our nation saw evil, the very worst of human nature, and we responded with the best of America, with the daring of our rescue workers, caring for strangers and neighbors, and everyone who helped in any way they could. I think the group that you see before you and around you represents the best of America in so many ways. With our Louisa County High School student, Ethan Phelps, we see a bright future through our children. With our first responders, law enforcement, and emergency medical services, we see brave individuals who are willing to sacrifice others' lives before their own. And with all those in attendance, we can still feel today how we came together as Americans in the wake of that day. I'd like to thank our Louisa County Sheriff's Office and our Louisa County Fire and Emergency Services Honor Guard, Major Roberts, Battalion Chief Sampson, Chaplain Laura Cable, Ethan Phelps, and our bagpiper John Lowry for being with us today. The speakers who will follow me are Sheriff Donald Lowe, Board of Supervisors Chairman Dwayne Adams, newly retired Fire Chief Robert Dubé, and recently appointed Fire Chief Kristen Hawk. Thank you so much for joining us again today, and may God bless you and America.
Good afternoon, and thank you for coming out to remember and honor the victims, the families, and heroes of the senseless attack upon our nation and our freedom. Over the years, our nation has come together at ceremonies in Louisa County and across the country to commemorate the anniversary of the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks. As this, the 21st anniversary on the attack of our nation arrives, we stand here again to honor those who lost their lives and loved ones on that tragic, fateful day. It shows our unwavering resolve to remember and to pay our respect to the lives lost, the tremendous sacrifice, and the acts of selfless bravery and courage shown by all of the heroes on that day. We stand here as a reminder of how those responding to the horrific attacks on September 11, 2001 had been, like we do every single day. Just moments before their calls of service started pouring in, we're going about their day. The call for service that would change their lives forever. As law enforcement officers, firefighters, emergency medical rescue personnel all know, you are always just one call away from your next big call. The call that may change your life and the lives of all your friends and family. We walk that line every minute, every hour, and every day as we put on our uniforms and our badges to begin our tour of duty. We say goodbye to our family and our friends in such a way that if we do not come home, we have left them knowing that we love them and they have meant the world to us. I am, as I am sure those speaking before you today are humbled to speak about those individuals that lost their lives and those that became forever heroes on September 11, 2001. The lives lost on that horrendous day and the days, months, and years following the machinated attack on our nation and our freedom created an indescribable, crushing blow to our very souls that we will always remember and pray that it will never be repeated. Unfortunately, I believe we are headed in that same direction if our discordant politicians continue to put themselves, the safety, security, and the sanctity of our country. I pray for all of us, our children, and the future of our country. Those that ran to the aid of the people trapped and injured inside the Twin Towers in the World Trade Center in New York City, to those that ran to the aid of the people trapped and injured inside the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., and for those brave individuals that stood up in the face of danger and took on the hijackers of Flight 93, which ultimately crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Can you imagine the fear that had to be overcome in each of these tragic events? I think you can, albeit notwithstanding, the reality is that you do this on every call you go on throughout your career. You never know how a call will turn out. What may seem to be routine can quickly change into a very dangerous and deadly situation. On or off duty really doesn't matter. First responders are heroic by nature and will react to a dangerous situation happening in their presence with the same resolve, commitment, and bravery as if they were on duty. They will still risk their lives to protect and rescue those who are in imminent danger. Think about the everyday citizens that became heroes that day and the days after that worked feverishly trying to help their fellow man, never complaining, working side by side with the first responders in our military. Some were injured and some perished. Some fell victim to cancer years later along with the same first responders that they worked tirelessly beside. Always remember these heroes and the sacrifices they made for complete strangers as you go about your day, and ask yourself, what would I do in a situation like that? I take comfort in believing that in Louisa County, we have the best trained and dedicated first responders that would not hesitate to engage any kind of a threat to our community, respond to any dangerous, life-threatening situation, and do whatever it takes to ensure the safety of our citizens. Over the years, I have personally witnessed on many occasions our fire, rescue, and law enforcement do just that with the utmost professionalism that deserves our recognition and our respect. We are blessed that we have a supportive county government and caring citizens that come together in our time of need. I said it before, and I'll say it again. We live in an awesome community. Let's not ever take that for granted. In closing, I will say, in today's climate, the best quote about September 11, 2001 is, if we learn nothing else from this tragedy, we learn that life is short and there is no time for hate. And those words were spoken by Sandy Dahl, the wife of Flight 93 pilot Jason Dahl. We will not forget. Thank you.
As the words on that memorial say, we will never forget. It is altogether right and proper that every year, in this 21st year of the anniversary of 9/11, we gather, as millions of Americans will gather, to remember September the 11th, 2001. And there are a lot of things that we will remember. We will remember exactly where we were when we heard the news. We will remember exactly where we were when we watched on television, as I did, the second plane fly into the second tower. We will remember the anger, the fear, the confusion as we realized that our country was under attack. We remember today the 2,977 people who perished in that attack. We remember the 441 first responders who rushed towards danger, who rushed into the Twin Towers, who rushed into the Pentagon, who rushed to that crash site in Pennsylvania. And we remember the reason that our country came under attack. Our country came under attack that day for the freedoms and the values that that flag represents. That flag that we pledged allegiance to, that flag that we stood when we heard the national anthem sing. The values of freedom, the values of the right of the individual, the values guaranteed to us to peacefully assemble, to say what we want to say, to attend church or not to attend church, to be religious or not to be religious. The values that people in some parts of the world look at as a threat. That's why we were attacked. Because America has been and continues to be a beacon of freedom, a beacon of hope, a place that people want to come from so that they can enjoy freedom. Are we a perfect country? Absolutely not. But are we the best place on earth? In my opinion, we absolutely are. Today is a day of reflection, a day of remembrance, a day of resolve that we, individually and collectively, will always stand for those freedoms that that flag represents. Always stand for the freedoms that brought our country under attack, because they are freedoms worth fighting for. They are freedoms that the rest of the world strives for. They are freedoms that people in the rest of the world come here for. And what I want to make sure that when we never forget the people who perished. We never forget the bravery of the first responders who rushed in. But we also never forget the values that caused that attack, because that's what makes America special. That's what makes America that shining light. And as I stand here and look at the people who serve Louisa County, our first responders, our law enforcement, our community, I want you to know that as a community, as citizens, as the local government, we understand your willingness to put your life on the line every single day. And we appreciate it. And we respect you for it. And we want you to know that we know you stand between us and danger, and you stand between us and evil. And for that, we should be eternally grateful. One of the things that came out of September 11th, as the days moved on, we saw that in this country, what unites us is far stronger than what divides us. We saw a swell of patriotism. We saw a groundswell of appreciation for the men and women who put their lives on the line every day, that unfortunately, sometimes we don't think about until we have to have the service, until we call, until we dial 911. It was brought to our attention that every single day there are people standing ready to sacrifice their lives to save ours. We saw people proud to be an American, proud to say that they believe this country and they believe the values that this country stands for. And so, one of the big takeaways for me, that what we can always celebrate in America is the American spirit, the American people, and the knowledge that we still remain that shining example in the world that people want to come here. And so the lessons of 9/11, we must always pledge never to let them fade away, never to forget, and remember that as Americans, we set the example throughout the world. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I want to thank all of you for attending today and ensuring we never forget September 11th, 2001. Last year, I had the honor of being back at the Pentagon for the 20th anniversary, and I can assure you that 9/11 remains as vivid to me and to those who were there as the day it happened. As Chairman Adams just mentioned, we all remember where we were, what we were doing that day. That day, as the training director and the task force leader for Fairfax County's Urban Search and Rescue Team, we were actually planning for an upcoming exercise related to structural collapse. Little did we know, within the hour, we would be driving about 6 miles to the Pentagon to do that very thing for the next week. That day was a blur. It went by so fast, and yet the week went by. It took forever, it seemed like. We were just there for days at a time, hours at a time, building shores, trying to find someone that was alive. Unfortunately, that was not the case. But we did do some good work there, and I'm proud of that. That day, I will never forget, quite obviously. And I'm sure that those of you who are working that day or whatever you were doing that day, I'm sure you'll remember that as well. I'm blessed to live in a community that continues to honor those sacrifices made by the heroic firefighters and police officers as they worked to save as many people as they could after the plane struck the towers in the Pentagon and after the plane was hijacked over Pennsylvania. The 343 firefighters and over 60 police officers who died in the line of duty represented the best of our profession. We must also never forget the hundreds of firefighters, police officers, iron workers, and others who worked tirelessly in the month afterwards in an effort to recover as many of the deceased as possible. Unbelievably, there are still more than 1,000 victims whose remains have never been identified. And the toll on those firefighters, police officers, and other workers continue today. Thousands of them have contracted some type of 9/11 induced cancer, and more have died from cancer than lost their lives in the line of duty that day. This is a generational issue that has decades to go. I know over a dozen fellow Fairfax County and Alexandria firefighters who have either contracted cancer or have died from it, directly related to their efforts at the Pentagon on 9/11. It is incumbent on us, all of us, to continue to ensure that they are taken care of in any way we can by helping with their care and in any way we can fund their medical bills. While we can and should never forget that day, we can take solace in knowing that the legacy of heroism and sacrifice on 9/11 will live on in our community through services such as this, the permanent display of the iron from the towers you see here in front of you. It also lives on in the selfless service of the men and women in uniform you see here today. They represent Louisa every day, often without notice, and do so without asking for recognition. But I ask you now to recognize their service and do so with a round of applause. I want to thank all of you personally for making our community safe. In closing, I want to thank Board of Supervisors Chair Adams, County Administrator Goodwin, Sheriff Lowe, Police Chief Buckley, and Fire and EMS Chief Kristen Hawk for their leadership today and every day. And as Chairman Adam mentioned and Sheriff Lowe mentioned, coming together as a country is critical. And while we honor 9/11 today, the America that I remember was on 9/12. There were flags everywhere. Everybody had flags. It didn't matter what political party you were part of, you had flags. They were all up and down through Fairfax and the Pentagon and everywhere you looked. Everyone was together. Everyone was focused on one mission. We can do that. Thank you.
The sound of the bell holds a special significance for firefighters. Historically, notified departments of a call for help and indicated a call was complete and the unit had returned to the station. Departments also sounded a series of bells when a firefighter died in the line of duty to alert all the members that a comrade had made the ultimate sacrifice. One of the most meaningful series of the bells is commonly called striking the 4 5s. The fire service is rich with ceremony, custom, and tradition. Our custom of rendering final honors has its origins in the fire departments of the city of New York, where many years ago, long before the advent of radios or pagers, fire alarms and daily announcements were dispatched from central headquarters to outlying firehouses by a system of bell commands and telegraph. Each different type of alarm or announcement would have its own number and series of bell strikes. When a firefighter died in the line of duty, or when some important official died, headquarters would transmit 5 bell strikes, repeated in 4 series with a slight pause between each series, followed by the announcement. This was done as long ago as 1865 in New York City to inform the rank and the file of the death of President Abraham Lincoln. The custom has continued down to present day. If you would, please remain standing. The signal 5555 has been transmitted. It is with regret that we announce the deaths of these faithful servants who we gather here today to memorialize. Thank you.
As our memorial concludes, I ask you to bow your head in prayer. Holy God, creator of all people and all nations, enable us to put an end to fear by resolving to live lives that are based on respect for one another, by resolving to abide in a peaceful manner and to never settle disagreements in our lives in a violent way, by responding not to fall into the trap of blaming entire ethnic groups, races, or religions in response to an act of hostility, by resolving that justice, not revenge, prevail in our world. Let us resolve that in the face of hatred, we will show love, that in times of despair, we will be the voice of hope, that in times of dread, we will be the creator of new dreams, and that in times of darkness, we will continue to be the source of light. Let us resolve that we never regard forgiveness as a sign of weakness, but rather as a source of strength in our lives and in our world. To truly live this way, so you may be glorified and your love be known to others through each and every one of us. And may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and give you peace, this day and forevermore. Amen. This concludes our ceremony. We thank you for coming. We thank you for our speakers, and especially those who continue to put their lives on the line every day for the community that they serve.